coverage has to be over the mask. It's the only way.
Yeah, I got readers, and
I know it's not easy.
we have to be masked up when we make a presentation.
No, sir. You can take it off when you're at the mic.
Thank you. Hey, Dee, how's it going?
Okay. Who? Jim Davis is in here?
Yeah.
Is that hand sanitizer?
Yes, sir. I'd be happy to. There you go.
All right. Good evening. Excuse me. Good evening and welcome. If you guys will just bear with us a couple minutes, we'll get the meeting started. Good evening and welcome to the Planning and Zoning meeting for the City of Smyrna. Bear with us. This is a learning experience for us. You guys are going to learn with us. Today is Monday, June 29th, 2020. It's 6 p.m. and this meeting's called to order. At this time, we'd like to ask that all electronic devices are turned off as they may interfere with our recording equipment. For those of you joining us for the first time, this meeting is conducted much like a council meeting. As such, each application will include a presentation from city staff and a question and answer session between staff and the board. Following staff's presentation, we'll have the applicant present their case and answer any questions from the board. Once all the questions have been satisfied, we'll have an opportunity for anyone in attendance that would like to come forward and speak in favor of or opposition to the application. More important than ever, we ask that you come forward one at a time. And then this is our first meeting back under the new social distancing. So we're going to, in between comments from the citizens, if you could just bear with us and give us a moment to sanitize or wipe down the podium in between. So it may take us a couple extra minutes to get through it, but we just appreciate you bearing with us in that. We'd also like to ask that your mask remain on at all times in the auditorium. I know it's uncomfortable, but it's just, a little minor thing that we can do. Maintain 6 foot from those around you. And when you come to the podium, if you do want to come and speak tonight, if you're comfortable, please remove your mask so that we can hear you clearly. The microphones and the mask don't work well. So if you could just do that, that'd be great. And then when you come to the podium, please state your name and address clearly for the record. We usually ask you to sign the sign-in sheet, but I imagine we've done away with that for this meeting. We have it? Okay, we're going to clean the pen, so if you could sign the sign-in sheet at the podium, that would be great. We're going to jump right into a couple items that we're going to table, a little procedural thing, and then we'll get into the actionable items. So the first item on our agenda is 2019-440. This item is to be tabled into the July 13th, 2020 meeting. Can I get a motion to table this item, please? A motion, Mr. Bartlett. Second, Mr. Rice. All in favor of tabling it? It's approved 5-0. Okay. The next item on our agenda is 2020-84. This item is to be tabled to the July 13th, 2020 meeting as well. Can we get a motion to table? Motion to table, Mr. Jones. Ms. Ortega, second. All in favor, please vote. It's approved 5-0. Table 5-0. All right, the next item is 2020-233. This item is to be tabled as well to the July 13th, 2020 meeting. Can I get another motion to table? Mr. Bartlett, motion to table. Mr. Jones, thank you. And it's, please vote. Sorry. It's approved 5-0. All right. Here we go. All right, the next item on our agenda is 2020-234. This is a public hearing, plat approval with variances for V20-030. It's 1.72 acres, land lot 487. This is 1151 Stevens Street. Longo Homes is the applicant. Mr. Staubs, the background, please.
Good evening, Joey Staubs, Planner 2 with Community Development. There's a plat approval with variances by Longo Homes. Your recommendation tonight will go to Mayor and Council next Monday on July 6th. So it's 1151 Stevens Street, 1.72 acres. It's currently 3 lots that the applicant wishes to reconfigure so that all 3 lots will face Stevens Street. It'll be consistent with the single-family houses to the west of it. It's R15 currently, and it'll stay R15. This is the proposed site plan. So the 3 single-family detached houses. The minimum setbacks will be a front 25, side 10, rear 30. It'll need a driveway setback reduction. And here's the detention facilities they're proposing. And part of the rationale for the front setback reduction is the stream buffers in the middle of the property. So they're trying to situate the houses outside of that buffer. So they're requesting 3 variances for the front setback reduction from 35 feet to 25 feet, reduction of the driveway setback from 5 feet to 2 feet, reduction in minimum lot width from 85 feet to 63 feet. These are proposed elevations of the homes. Pictures of the subject property. It's currently a wooded lot with pretty steep topography in the back. Pictures of the adjacent properties. So we're recommending approval of the proposed subdivision plat in keeping with the R15 zoning district. We are recommending the following conditions. The minimum setbacks as stated, front 25 feet, side 10, rear 30, and driveway setback of 2 feet. Development shall have the minimum lot width of 63 feet. They'll have to comply with the stormwater detention plan. They'll dedicate 5 feet of right-of-way along Stevens Street. And approval will be subject to the site plan presented with the subdivision plat. That I'll entertain any questions.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Staubs? No? All right. Thank you, sir. At this time, we'd like to have the applicant come forward. Good evening and welcome.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. Vincent Longo, Longo Homes Incorporated. I am the applicant.
We're glad you're here, Vince.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm glad to go first, get all the jitters out for everybody. If you wanted a little bit of extra information about the property, we know that there's been a number of issues with the current property. I think a lot of us around Smyrna that our builders have been talking with the owner for years. This is actually the first time we've been able to get her to budge to sell the property. I guess I was in the right place at the right time. Thank the Lord. Strike that, I guess. I don't know if I can say that. But anyway, I just wanted to say what we've got planned here, I feel like is a good option for the property. It's going to improve the what's currently there. We've already been speaking with Kevin Moore and working through the different site drainage, water quality, and we feel we actually are at a good point now and are working on the final set of plans based off of how we do today, and then at the mayor and council meeting. Again, the homes are going to be they're going to be real nice, as you can see here with the proposed home elevations, and they'll be in the probably mid to upper sevens, and they'll be for sale. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Longo? All right, stay close. We may have you back up in a minute if there's anything that we can't answer. All right, this is a public hearing. While we're getting everything wiped down, we just want to open the floor to anybody in attendance that would like to come forward and speak in favor of or opposition to this application. All right, let the record show there are no one in attendance with comments. All right, any questions for Mr. Longo or staff? Okay. I do believe I saw the city engineer sneak in at some point. If there's questions for him, I don't see him now, but, oh, there he is. All right. Any further discussion? How about a motion? We got Mr. Jones with a motion to approve. Mr. Jones is Ward 2, correct? Our Ward 3 representative is not here tonight, so we got a motion to approve. Mr. Jones. Second, Mr. Rice. All in favor of the motion, please vote. Sorry. The application is approved 5-0. Good luck with your project, Mr. Longo. All right. The next item on the agenda is item 2020-235. This is zoning request Z20-005. This is rezoning from RDA and R20 to RDA conditional for the development of 3 single-family detached homes at a density of 4.9 units per acre, 0.611 acres in land lot 519. This is also known as 2495 Adams Drive and 1221 Pierce Street. Mr. Staubs, the background, please.
Yes, sir. This is the applicant, Ron Dickinson. Your recommendation will go to Mayor and Council on July 20th. The property is 2495 Adams Drive and 1221 Pierce Avenue. It's about 6.6 acres in Ward 3. Currently, there's one house under construction, and then another house on Adams that has a house with a detached accessory dwelling unit. So they're replacing that house and accessory dwelling unit with 2 single-family detached houses. The existing zoning is R20 and RDA. Proposed zoning is all of it to go to RDA. Future land use is medium-density residential and low-density residential, so that'll need a land use change for all of it to be medium-density residential. To the north is in Cobb. To the east is medium and low-density residential. To the south is moderate-density residential, and to the west is Cobb County. This is the proposed site plan. The lot on the facing Pierce Avenue is the lot under construction, and the two lots on Pierce Avenue, Adams Drive will be the two new lots. The development will need a front setbacks of 15 feet, side of 5 feet, and a rear setback of 30 feet. Excuse me. They're requesting 3 variances to reduce the front setback from 25 feet to 15 feet, to allow reduction in minimum lot size from 7260 to 6250, and allow reduction of the minimum lot width from 50 feet to 43 feet. These are the proposed home elevations. Pictures of the subject property. The lot, the one in green is the lot with the residential house and detached accessory dwelling unit. And the one below is the lot under construction. These are pictures of the adjacent property. Staff recommends approval for the rezoning from R20 and RDA to RDA for the development of 3 single-family units at a density of 4.9 units per acre, with the following conditions. Our standard conditions regarding the composition of homes. Utilities are underground. They'll be responsible for any traffic improvements. No debris can be buried on the lot. They'll have to comply with our tree ordinance and landscape plans prepared by a landscape architect. All yards are sodded, and they have certain trees they have to plant before issuance of CO. Special conditions are the setbacks, as previously stated. Front is 15 feet, side is 5, rear is 30. Have a minimum 22-foot length driveway. Right-of-way, minimum of 25 feet. Left install curb and gutter where necessary, and maximum height of 35 feet. They'll have to meet any fire access requirements, water and sewer improvements, stormwater improvements, and they'll be bound to the site plan submitted with the rezoning. And they'll be bound to the elevations submitted with the rezoning. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Staubs? No. Go ahead, Mr. Vargas.
One question, Mr. Staubs. It's noted on here in the recommendations, it's Matthews Avenue. Is that Adams?
You have to look at my staff report to see if that was a mistypo or.
Just want to make sure.
Sure.
Good.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Mr. Staubs. All right, this time we'd like to have the applicant come forward, tell us a little bit about the application. Good evening and welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening to you and to members of the Planning Commission. My name is Garvis Sams. I'm with the law firm of Sams, Larkin and Huff in Marietta. First of all, it's good to be before you. It's good to be anywhere in person, face to face. Zoom is great, but after a while, there's nothing like personalization of being able to make a presentation in front of people as opposed to a computer. And also, congratulations to the new members of the Planning Commission. My first time before you guys. Congratulations. Mr. Staubs, as typically, did a good job with his presentation. What I'd like to do is adhere to that, but also to deviate in terms of providing you with a few more salient facts regarding the zoning. He is correct. This is an assemblage of 2495 Adams Drive and 1221 Pierce Avenue, and the addition of 0.611 acre tract, approximately total 26,615 square feet, which is the combination of the two parcels, which will be reconfigured into a total of three parcels. Not unlike, frankly, ultimately the lot size, the house style, the density, and very similar to Mr. Longo and it's just right down the street from that, if you're familiar with this sub area. Two of these properties will be fronting on the west side of Adams Drive, and the third is on the north side of Pierce Avenue. You've got your GIS maps and your aerial photography, and staff does a good job getting that in your zoning analysis. Plus, I've given you a handout that reiterates some of what staff has provided to you, but also has some additional information that may be helpful to you. What this does is splitting a portion of the lot at 1221 Pierce Avenue. What that does is give us 100 feet in addition to be able to accommodate this. Under your future land use map, Mr. Dobbs is of course correct. Part of this property is medium density residential. The other part is R20. When you mix the two in terms of future land use recommendations, you come up with 4.9 units per acre. LDR allows up to 3 units per acre, whereas medium density allows up to, I think, 6 units per acre. So in addition to this, we're also seeking 3 concurrent variances, which is typical for this sub-area, again, of the city. Front setback from 25 feet to 15 feet. Reduction in minimum lot size from 7,260 to 6,250, just like Mr. Longo's presentation in terms of lot size. That's a difference of 1,010 feet. And also an allowance for the reduction in the minimum lot width from 50 to 43 feet to accommodate the totality of the assemblage. Unlike most every case I've ever presented to you guys, this doesn't have a stipulation letter. We, of course, conferred with staff during the pendency of the application, and they've covered the waterfront in terms of stipulations and conditions. There wasn't really much we could add to that. I can say expressly, though, that we're agreeable, amenable to all those stipulations becoming conditions of the zoning. So your professional staff has recommended approval of the entirety of this, and of course, we think that's important. Not necessarily in terms of momentum, but in terms of having professionals look at this and give their unbiased opinion. Of course, we've interfaced with staff during the pendency of the application. We've talked to area homeowners and business owners down the street and across the street. We haven't encountered any opposition. I don't know if y'all have heard from someone. I have not. And I did know some people from handling Mr. Longo's zoning a couple years ago. I do know some folks in the area, so it wasn't like starting from scratch. Again, you may have heard from someone. I did not. I did get one phone call, and that was an informational phone call, and I was able to clue them in as to what we were doing and the intent of that, and they seemed to be pleased with that. Long story, very short. We're just asking that you follow your staff's recommendation tonight, and that you, as the Planning Commission, recommend to the mayor and city council that this be approved as presented to you tonight and is augmented by staff's recommendations and the substantive and substantial conditions and stipulations that they've added. So, Mr. Chairman, at this time, I'm available to answer any questions from either you or any member of the Planning Commission.
Do we have any questions for the applicant? No. All right. Thank you, Mr. Sams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, if you guys would bear with us while we wipe down the podium one more time, we're going to open the floor to any public comment in favor of or opposition to this application. And thank you, Chief Acree, for taking care of us. All right, is there anyone in attendance that would like to come forward and speak in favor of or opposition to this application? All right. Any further discussion? All right. Can I get a motion, please? A move to approve, or? Okay. Ms. Orstrega, move to approve. Mr. Jones, second. And all in favor? Obviously. The application is approved 5-0. Good luck, Mr. Sams, to your client. All right. The next item on the agenda is item 2020-236, zoning request Z20-007. This is rezoning from GC to R8 for the development of 3 single-family detached homes at a density of 4.89 units per acre, 0.613 acres, and land lot 559. This is also known as 1424 Spring Street. Mr. Staubs, the background, please.
Yes, sir. This is zoning case C20-007, applicant's Alexandria Properties. Your recommendation will go to Mayor and Council on July 20th. Subject property is 1424 Spring Street. It's a little over 0.6 acres in Ward 3. Currently, there's one existing structure. It's a chiropractic clinic. Applicant is wishing to preserve that structure and build two single-family detached units facing Alexander Street. Current zoning is GC, general commercial, and proposed zoning is R8. Existing future land use is mixed use, and it'll stay mixed use. To the north is moderate density residential, to the east is moderate density residential, and to the south and west is mixed use. This proposed site plan. You've got the existing structure facing Spring Street, and then lot 2 and 3 that'll face Alexander. We have the minimum setbacks, front 20 feet, side 5 feet, rear 25 feet. This is a stream buffer that affects lot 3, which is the reason for the orientation of that lot and the structure on that lot. We're asking for a 10-foot right-of-way dedication with 5-foot sidewalk, curb, and gutter. And then to increase the road width from back of curb to back of curb to 20 feet. It's currently about 15 feet, but it varies. The applicant's requesting 2 variances to allow the reduction of the front setback from 25 feet to 20 feet and to eliminate the road width increase from 26 feet. I'll explain that. Originally, we were working with the applicant and requested 26 feet for the road width. Subsequently, we've decreased that to 20 feet. So we're just leaving it as it originally was requested by the applicant. Part of the reason for their variance is a 40-foot oak tree. This is the location of the oak tree. It's on the right-of-way. And also trying to preserve a stand of trees farther north on Alexander Street. This is the sewer location, which is on the south end of Alexander. And I don't know if you could see it. It's the purple line on the south end. The yellow line is where they'll approximately connect with that sewer line. So staff's view that that tree is going to be disturbed either with the sewer line or the sidewalk, curb, and gutter that they're subsequently going to have to install. Additionally, we're requesting the 20-foot road width increase so fire access can move up and down the street. If one is parked on the street, another needs to pass by. Additionally, just for everyday vehicle activity, it's hard to get 2 cars passing each other on that street as it currently is. So our rationale for the opposition is it does not meet the minimum roadway width for emergency service delivery. The 40-inch tree will be impacted by the sewer line. Trees will be impacted by the sidewalk, curb, and gutter improvements. And it'll be impacted by the grading of the lot and the driveways that'll be installed. This is the proposed home elevation for lot 2. Pictures of the subject property. The first one is the Spring Street, and then the others are looking down Alexander. Pictures of adjacent properties. Staff recommends approval of the rezoning from GC to R8 for the development of 3 single-family units at a density of 4.9 units per acre with the following conditions. are standard conditions regarding the composition of homes, underground utilities, any traffic improvements deemed necessary by the city engineer. No debris can be buried. They'll comply with our tree ordinance, and landscape plans will be prepared by a registered landscape architect. All yards will be sodded, and they will plant appropriate trees. They're tied to the setbacks stated on the site plan, which is front of 20, side 5, rear 25. Minimum 22-foot length driveway. They'll dedicate 10 feet of right-of-way along Alexander Street. Alexander Street will be increased from 20 feet from back of curb to back of curb. Developer shall install curb and gutter along the frontage of Alexander Street. There'll be a 5-foot sidewalk, 2-foot grass strip. All structures will have a maximum height of 35 feet. They'll meet fire access requirements, water and sewer improvements. They'll be responsible for any stormwater improvements deemed necessary. They're responsible for water and sewer improvements and stormwater improvements. They're tied to the site plan submitted with the application and then the elevation submitted with the application. So the applicant will say why he wants the variance. If the board does not want to keep that condition, then you can just strike condition 12 in your recommendation. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Stubbs? No. Thank you, sir. All right, this time we'd like to have the applicant come forward and tell us a little bit about your plans. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. So I'm going to just touch everything up here.
It's all right, we'll clean it up.
My name is Robert Harrison. Address is 2889 Alexander Street, Smyrna. I live right across the street from the subject property for full disclosure. The main purpose behind my desire to redevelop this property is actually 2 or 3 reasons, actually. First of all, to preserve the house that's on the corner. I have a printout here that has some historical facts about the house that was built on the corner. If there's anybody that might be able to help me distribute these, or I can just leave them up on the podium. As part of that packet, there are also some photos of Alexander Street. And as they mentioned, Alexander Street is more narrow than some of the other streets in the neighborhood. It's tree lined. It's one of the reasons I bought my house on that property 7 years ago. It's unique. We're losing a lot of our tree canopy, as evidenced by the street that is directly parallel to Alexander Street, which is Foster Street, that's been redeveloped, and every single tree on that street has now been clear cut. There were some really large oak trees towards the back of the property that had no reason to be cut, but that developer chose to clear cut every single lot on that street. So it's got a drastically different look to it, and I'm trying to avoid having to do that. The house that's on the corner was built circa 1900 to 1910. They don't know for sure, but they have evidence tracing it back to the early 1900s. There's evidence that the house had a wraparound front porch originally, and so as part of my application, I'm asking for a variance for Lot 2 so that I can have a rather large front porch in that house to mimic that, and to mimic the house that's directly across Spring Street, Larry Jones's house, that dates back to the early 1900s as well. There's also a number of houses in the neighborhood that date about the same time. So we're trying to mimic the same look. I want to make it look like it was built around the same time and do my best to make sure that it fits into the neighborhood. So as far as the application goes, the house up front, the 1910 house, will remain. We're going to try to find somebody that would like to restore that house back to a residence. It maintains a lot of the original character on the outside. The inside front portion is still pretty much original floors, windows, fireplace, several other things. The back of the house has been remodeled into an office space right now, and so it would need to have some work done to it to convert it back to a residence, but it's totally possible. There's room for that. Lot 2 is in the middle. That's where I'd like to build a new residence. Lot 3, my plans are to maintain it as a green space for now. I don't have any immediate plans to start construction on that anytime soon. I like having the green space across the street from my house. Plan to plant some fruit trees. I have a family history of orchards, and so I'd like to continue that. But I have to show that it's a viable building lot for the rezoning, and so that's the odd shape of that house is to fit within the setbacks for the creek, the creek buffer, stream buffer. So it would be an oddball house if that was built. I have no plans on building that anytime soon, but it does comply with the zoning regulations so that we can move on with the overall rezoning. Once again, the intention is to preserve the house. So the first variance that I'm asking for is the front setback for lot 2 so that I can have a slightly larger front porch. The lot is not very deep, and on the back side of that lot is a 2-story nursing home assisted living facility. It's not that attractive, so trying to push the house back further is probably not the best idea. It's a small backyard anyway, so we're just asking for a 5-foot variance for the front porch. Getting to the second variance request for the street, as part of the site plan, I have that I will be adding curbs and gutters to Alexander Street. The width of Alexander Street varies a good bit depending on where you stand. It's a very old street. At the entrance, it is 16 feet from the back of curb to the edge of the asphalt, and then it varies another foot or two as you go down the street. It gets wider towards lot 3, where it gets to 17, close to 18 feet at the very bottom of lot 3. When I add the curb and gutters, the average width will then be increased another 2 feet, so the width will be between 18 and 19 feet. I went around and measured all the other streets within walking distance of my house. My neighbors were curious about that, but with the tape measure, I determined that every other street around Alexander Street is 19 feet. Foster Street, Mimosa Street, Walker Court, Whitfield, Morris Circle, I could go on. They're all 19 feet wide. And so all I'm asking is a variance to not widen the street to 20 feet. And the reason is that is the point where I have to take down all of the trees down Alexander Street. I measured it again today. I can accommodate curb and gutters with slight variations down the street. The worst case scenario, there's a small cluster of small diameter trees right between lot 1 and lot 2. That might have to go, but there are small diameter trees that can be replaced within the tree plan. But the 40-inch oak is one that I'm really trying hard to preserve. We don't have a lot of those left in the neighborhood. A couple of things to correct. Mr. Stobbs mentioned that the water and sewer would affect the tree. I met with Paul Osborne and Frank Martin of the Public Works Department. We worked out a plan to take the sewer line diagonally from Lot 2 down to Alexander Street to avoid getting into the root zone of that tree, and also running the sewer line down the side of Alexander Street. They approved that. Mr. Martin just had that road paved about 5 months ago, so he was not excited about me tearing up the road to run sewer to it. So we'll be able to run water and sewer for Lot 2 and 3 south to connect to where the sewer comes up the road. Lot 1 is currently connected to the sewer on Spring Street, and so it will not have to come down the side of the road. So water, sewer, utilities, all those will not affect that tree or the other trees. And if we can get the variance approved for 1 foot, I can put in the curb and gutters and stay out of most of the trees along Alexander Street to try and preserve that. I have some neighbors that would like to speak on that as well. Other than that, this is my first time doing this, so I am definitely open to any questions you might have.
Do you have any questions for the applicant? And Mr. Bartlett.
Hey, thanks for coming out. This seems like a lot of work, a lot of hoops to jump through for essentially building a house.
Have you seen my house?
I'm not familiar with your house. But
Okay, I built a house that looks like a fire station for no reason.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that one.
Absolutely.
No reason other than I wanted something a little bit different. I'm not worried about extra work or hoops to jump through. I'm very passionate about preserving that house, preserving the look of that street. So I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no,
but
no. I'm just
so you're fully aware that I don't mind a little extra work.
I think, if I'm correct, once this gets rezoned, the chiropractic office is now a non-conforming use.
They're moving up to Dixie Avenue. I just finished helping them move to a new office. So yeah, it'll be vacant, and it'll be there won't be any commercial use after that point.
And what about including the third lot that is not, you're showing the odd shaped, that could be a house?
Right, it could be a house if I choose to build that. I have no plans to build that anytime soon. I want to preserve that as green space for right now.
Okay.
So yes, I could make a lot more money if I applied for 4 houses, knock down the first house. So
No, I don't want you
yeah.
to build more houses.
Right.
I'm
That-
wondering if,
right.
is there a simpler way to do your work without combining these 3 lots into a new rezoning?
No, due to cost reasons, I have to pay back the money that it took to buy the property, which it was not cheap. So the cost of the property has to be paid back. The house on the end of the street is not worth, if you carve that off as just one parcel, the extra land behind it doesn't give it any more value. It would not sell for what I paid for that property. So the intention was to build a house on the middle lot and sell that, and the proceeds would pay back the money that I spent to buy the overall property and find somebody and take my time to find somebody that would like to preserve that house and not knock it down.
Okay.
That's the key to it.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right.
Yep.
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Jones.
Yeah. Do you have any of the stuff about the sewer like in writing, like emails or anything like that? An email from them?
I have an email, not with me, but yes,
Yeah.
we have approvals, and I can show that Frank Martin approved it, and I did meet with Paul Osborne on site, so I'm happy to provide that.
Okay.
Okay, and just so we're clear, you're talking about taking the sewer line across another lot? Is that what?
Yes, they said, I keep saying really loud, as long as you show that on the plat, that there's a service easement across the corner of Lot 3, from now and forevermore, if that sewer line needs to be repaired, there's a service easement so that that line can be repaired.
Yeah,
And I would be the owner of Lot 3, so that would be me.
yeah, and there's, I mean, you know that I know a good bit about building and that kind of thing.
Yes.
And just understanding the level of impact that just the one house in the middle, Lot 2, do you think it's feasible that you're going to be able to protect that tree?
Yes. I have a tree plan that shows that that tree is outside of the building area. With proper tree barriers, we can protect that tree and preserve it.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant?
Just to be clear, the tree plan we have does not show that?
This is evolved in the past few days, and I'm happy to add that to the tree plan to show the protection. The previous tree plan was worst-case scenario if the road had to be widened and all the trees had to be
Okay.
taken down, and I was made aware of that, and so we can make that last adjustment on there.
And that's with 19 feet, and the 19.
That's correct.
The dimension of the 19 is back of curb to back of curb.
That's correct,
Okay.
and that's why I'm not asking to not widen the road. I'm asking to not widen the road to exactly 20 feet, the entire length of lots 1, 2, and 3. By adding curb and gutter, I will be widening that road to between 18 and 19 feet, depending on where you are. The narrowest point is near that tree. It also happens to be directly across from an alleyway, another road, which makes the road effectively wider if a truck needs to get past. There's not another obstacle on the other side of the street, so it does make it a little bit easier to pass there.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Harrison. At this time, we'd like to see if there's anyone in attendance that would like to come forward and speak in favor of or opposition to this application. Again, if you would just give us a moment to clean up, we'll have you up here. And we are going to do this in between each person that would like to speak, so please bear with us. All right, one at a time, please. Good evening and welcome.
Thank you very much. My name is Danica Floyd, and I live on Mimosa Circle, right across the street from where he is. Robert is very passionate, if you've ever seen his firehouse, and he's an artist in anything that he builds. So I strongly support his variance request, because I know that he's just looking out for the Williams Park neighborhood. And he did go around. I saw him going around measuring the streets. It's like, what are you doing? So, and he did measure ours to be 19 feet. So I think that's fine. If there was any kind of an issue with the width of the street, the road that he's talking about, it's a very short street and it's a dead end. So it's not like there's a lot of traffic. He probably is the most traffic on that street. So I think that he should have the variances, and I'm confident that he will build it and have the canopy and the landscape in the best interest of our neighborhood. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Anyone else that would like to come and speak in favor of or opposition to this application? Good evening and welcome.
How are you? I'm Ron Waddell. I live in Williams Park as well. I've had a house there since the early 90s. My grandparents lived there back in the 1940s. Williams Park's the oldest neighborhood that you got in the city of Smyrna. What I have watched over just the past 5 or 6 years is the history is just going out the door. And it's very rapidly starting to look like a very big apartment complex. Any builder that comes in, they immediately clear cut any property. They immediately change the elevation of the properties. I'd be willing to say if my grandparents could come back and take a look at it, you'd probably have to explain to them where they were. What I hear him doing and what I see him doing and what he's attempting to do is you've actually got a developer here that is actually trying to preserve some of the history there on the, and I appreciate your questions about all that, as far as trying to save a house versus tearing them down. My father lives directly across the street from me on Walker Court. The 2 houses that are built behind him now are beautiful homes, but they took down 3 of the oldest houses in the city of Smyrna to be able to build those. What he is attempting to do is what no other builder that I have seen in the area there do, and is actually try to preserve something. So if the matter of 1 foot is actually going to try to save some of the canopy that's actually there in Williams Park, what's the point of having the advertisement for that being the oldest neighborhood if when you drive through it looks like one of the new apartment complexes that's been put up. So if you can at least use just a little grace, a little common sense to the whole thing, and just to allow them to actually save some of the actual canopy that is there, he's actually saving the house, and hopefully he can find somebody that will actually respect the property and actually treat it for what it's worth, and save that history that is there. I would just hope that you can find it in all of your, I hear a bunch of numbers and a bunch of different acreages and all that stuff going on tonight, but if you actually walk down the sidewalk and subtract yourself from all the numbers and try to put yourself back into some type of restoration process that he's trying to do and preservation process that he's trying to do, it's a worthwhile cause. So I hope you take that well in consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Waddell. Anybody else? Do you want to clean the podium, sir, or did he touch it? He didn't touch it? Okay. Thank you very much. Chief thanks you.
Hi, my name is William Jared Hill. I own and reside at 1440 Spring Street, and I just want to say that I support Mr. Harrison's variance request, and that I oppose any of the removal of any of the heritage trees in the Williams Park neighborhood.
Thank you, Mr. Hill.
Thank you.
Anybody else that'd like to come forward and speak in favor of or opposition to the application? Good evening, Mr. Jones.
How are you guys?
Doing well.
Don't want to be redundant. I live across the street. I know Robert, and I know what he does, and I just want to urge you guys to help us protect this tree canopy for all the reasons you just heard. And I'm in support of the project.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Chairman. My name is George Mitros. I live on Pierce Avenue. Just wanted, and forgive my ignorance on the zoning rules, so if outside the lane here, please let me know. I like the proposal. I live nearby, so anytime we can preserve any sort of tree canopy is a good thing in my book. I'm all about it. If the concern is, and I heard some of the concerns about emergency vehicles perhaps being able to access the property, if that's a concern, is there any way to put in the proposal or in the variance some sort of conditions that say, should that tree not be able to be preserved in any way, that then the road width would have to go back to 20 feet if during the course of construction that's not found to be feasible to preserve it? Is that a possibility of some sort?
I mean, anything's possible. I mean, once you get started on a project like this and you set the curbs at 19 feet and then something happens to the tree and it dies by natural causes or something else, lightning for God's sakes, it's not really a practical thing to go in and reset them. It's a lot more difficult transaction at that point. But again, we have to take all the information that we have in front of us and make decisions that are best for the entire community, and present a plan or approve a plan that gives us that better community, right? We can't operate in a bunch of variables because it just muddies the water too much and gives the developers too much room to maneuver and not enough room for us to hold them accountable.
I understand. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for your comments. Anybody else? Thank you very much, Chief. All right, is there any further discussion or questions for the applicant? Okay. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion.
Real quick, if we were to adjust what I believe is item 12 on the recommendations from 19 to 20 feet, is that something we would say out in the motion?
Yeah, basically, if you approve the application with staff's recommendation, when it goes up to mayor and council, they would have to decide whether or not that the widening was necessary or not. Mm-hmm. If you don't think that the widening is necessary, then you could strike that item. You could say, I recommend approval, with the following conditions, and remove that item as a condition of your requirement.
Yeah. Can we set the width at 19 feet instead of withdrawing the requirement?
Do you want to address that for us, Mr. Martin?
Rusty Martin, Community Development Director. Yeah, I mean, you can make the motion to strike that condition and then establish your own width. I mean, obviously, you're establishing a width that the city engineer, community development haven't reviewed, so you're just sort of arbitrarily picking a width out of the.
Well, so if I'm hearing comments correctly, though, 19 matches existing conditions in and around.
Well, I mean, I can't verify that.
Yeah.
He can say, yeah, it's 19 feet, and it where he took his measurement, it may be. And then if the street is 500 feet in linear length, and down the street it's 26 feet, then, I mean, that's something we have to sort out. But
So real quick, guys, for those of you in attendance and for us up here that are relatively new, or some of us that have been here forever, the staff has come up with this recommendation with the city engineer, and this is going to go to mayor and council for a final decision. We're an advisory board. We give them a recommendation. It goes up, and it's just one of the checks and balances in this process of making sure that the things that we're approving in our community are the best thing for our community. The zoning board is not a final say. So if we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of the application, and you were going to say, I'm going to turn this application down because of this item, I would suggest that you not do that. But I would suggest, even if I can suggest, that if we're going to recommend approval, that we push it up the ladder. Mr. Harrison indicated that he has new information that we may not be privy to, specifically regarding the tree, from the Public Works Director and his tree plan, that I think would be beneficial to making that decision. And I would be cautious about saying, let's change this to an arbitrary number that we may or may not be able to verify from where we sit today. That's how I would suggest we move forward.
I mean, you guys have a recommendation for staff to approve the development as proposed. Staff is supportive of the development. What our concerns are is, and you have to remember, when we're making these decisions and recommendations, we're looking out 40 years from now. We're not looking out a year or two from now. So the future land use for that area has changed to mixed use. You have some vacant properties, you have some older properties that may ultimately redevelop in the future and add additional uses, density. I don't know what it's going to add, but it has a future opportunity of being developed. We recognize that, and we're saying we're redeveloping this section of road, and we do this across every development that comes through you guys. You have similar stipulations for every rezoning. On his side of the road, he needs to bring it up for the length of his property, up to a minimum standard for us to provide service, not just for now, but for 40 or 50 years from now when we have a development behind that. And those are the considerations that we're taking into account, on top of when you have the site plan and it reflects you're putting curb and gutter on the back of the street, so you're going to be cutting there to put your gutter in. It has a 5-foot sidewalk with a 2-foot grass strip. That plan there reflects impacts to all the trees down that street. And yes, we can stop the sidewalk and make the handicapped people go into the street and then come back to the sidewalk around the tree. That's fine. But we're also taking into account whether that sewer line goes to the corner of lot 3 between lot 3 and 2, whether it stays in the right-of-way and goes up past the tree and then goes in like it normally would do, or if you go 45 degrees from that corner and go into lot 2, that tree is a 40-inch tree. The structural root plate on that tree is 20 feet, and the critical root zone is 40 feet based on our ordinance. The cumulative impacts of the development are going to negatively affect that tree. If you guys go ahead and support it and say, yeah, that tree can stay, then we're going to have to work with Mr. Harrison to come up with a tree prescription plan for that tree and then work on the bonding for that tree, because that tree is in the right-of-way. And the citizens shouldn't have to pay for the removal of that tree when the impacts are so large that the tree's going to be dead in 2 to 3 years. So those are the things that we're weighing out. It's up to you guys to say whether our recommendation's valid or what he's saying is valid, and go on that. I mean, there's nothing personal here. It's just all, we're just trying to give you the facts.
Sorry, thought I saw the light come on. And if I understand it correctly, the minimum requirement is 26 feet. This is being reduced to 20 feet to accommodate this development.
20 feet wide, and that's the minimum we would do in a private development to ensure that our emergency service vehicles, when they're coming to a site, that an additional vehicle can pass when all the rigging is out and it's fully in operation. So we're trying to make sure that we're thinking about the future with this stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a difficult situation, and I would love to save every tree that's out there, but the size of some of these lots and the size of the homes that are going on these lots, it's just not compatible, and sometimes it's the trees got to go down, but the tree ordinance requires recompense and replanting, which is, it's not great the first 10 years because the trees aren't the same size as what was there, but you're adding back to the canopy. You're adding back to the canopy in lieu of taking that tree down. So, I mean, I'll be happy to answer anything else you guys got.
Any more questions for Mr. Martin? Okay, thank you much. All right, any other further discussion? Did we get your question answered, Mr. Bartlett? Thank you, sir. All right, then I would like to entertain a motion.
Motion to approve zoning request Z20-007, rezoning from GC and R8 to for the development of 3 single-family detached homes at a density of 4.89 units per acre.
So we have a motion to approve the plan as presented. We have a second. We have 2 seconds. I'm going to go with Mr. Rice since I heard him. Motion to approve, Mr. Bartlett. Motion is seconded. Mr. Rice, please vote. All right. Your application is approved as presented, 5-0. Good luck to you, Mr. Harrison. The application has been approved as presented with staff's recommendations. Correct. Hold on, no. The application as presented, okay, with the staff stipulations, has been approved. So going forward to mayor and council, the only thing that I believe you have to work on is the widening of the curb and gutter issue, and with the other information that we don't have here, hopefully that's enough to accomplish your goal. And we all want to save these trees, guys. I mean, they are going away far too fast. But the alternative in the situation is to not develop the property. So, I mean, that's the ultimate way to save these trees. But that's just not practical. As he said, there's a cost that he has to cover. But Mr. Harrison, good luck to you. All right. The next item on our agenda is 2020-237. This is zoning request Z20-008. This is rezoning from GC and RM12 to mixed use for the development of 105 multifamily units. It's 15,100 square feet of retail at a density of 35.8 units per acre. It's 2.93 acres in land lot 594 and 631. Also known as 2930, 2968, through 2968 Jonquil Drive, 1650 Spring Road, and 1639 Corn Road. Mr. Staubs, the background, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you. This is Z20-008. Applicant is the Woodbury Group. Your recommendation will go to Mayor and Council on July 20th. So this is an assemblage of several properties on Spring Road, Jonquil Drive, and Corn Road. The approximate acreage is 2.93 in Ward 2. It has existing commercial uses on the property, currently zoned GC and RM12. The proposal is to rezone to mixed use for a mixed-use development of 105-unit multifamily development and 15,100 square feet of retail and amenity area. It's surrounded by general commercial, some townhome, and then R15 to the east. Future land use is community activity center and medium high density residential. That'll be all consolidated into community activity center for the mixed use rezoning. To the north is community activity center. To the east is community activity center and moderate density residential. South is community activity center and private recreation. To the west is medium high density residential. So this is the proposed site plan. Building 100, that'll face Spring Road. It has approximately 60,000 square feet of gross floor area, It'll have 40 residential units above, and then at the bottom level, we'll have 4,300 square foot amenity area and a little, almost 1,100 square feet of retail restaurant area. Building 200 will be 7,400 square feet gross floor area. It'll be strictly residential with 65 units. Proposed setbacks for the whole development are front 5 feet, side 5 feet, and rear 30. Along Spring Road, there will be a outdoor plaza area for the commercial level. There'll be 5-foot sidewalk and 2-foot grass strip on Spring and Jonquil. Interior, there's 138 parking spaces and then 9 parallel spaces on Jonquil. There'll be a variable right-of-way dedication on Jonquil. There'll be underground stormwater detention in the back near Corn Road. And then the following variances: to reduce the front setback from 50 feet to 5, reduce the side setback from 30 feet to 5, reduce the rear setback from 100 to 30 feet, reduce the landscape easement along Spring and Jonquil for the seating area and then the parallel parking spaces, and increase the density from 25 units to 35.9 units per acre. Most of those setback variances are from our Spring Road Corridor Design District, which really doesn't contemplate mixed-use development that we're currently doing from the LCI study. This is the proposed tree plan. So you'll notice on the west side of the development, abutting the townhomes, there'll be a landscape buffer that creates a buffer from that development to the parking area of this development. And then accordingly, street trees on Spring Road and Jonquil. These are the proposed building elevations. So the top is what you'll see on Spring, and then on the bottom is sort of looking towards Jonquil. Pictures of the subject property and the adjacent properties. So staff recommends approval of the rezoning to mixed use. 400, excuse me, that's messed up. For 35.9 units per acre. Standard conditions regarding the composition of the architecture, retention pond, utilities are underground, developers responsible for traffic improvements. There'll be brick pavers at the entrance of the development. They'll have decorative streetlights within the development, and they'll comply with the city's tree ordinance. Landscape plans are prepared by registered landscape architect, and then all common areas will be sodded. They'll have the following: building setbacks for building 100, which is front 5 feet, side 5 feet, side 30 feet on the west, and the rear is not applicable. Building 200 will have a front setback of 10 feet, side setback of 10 feet, rear setback of 30 feet. They'll meet all fire access requirements, water and sewer improvements, and stormwater improvements. They will provide a sidewalk connection on Spring Road. Development will not be gated. And minimum floor area for the multifamily will be 900 square feet. All the parking will be shared amongst the respective components of the development. Air-conditioned condensers and transformers will be screened. All the dumpsters will be positioned to prevent visual intrusion from streets. Number of residential units shall not exceed 105 Class A amenitized units. All apartments shall be maintained as Class A, first-class manner. Multifamily units will have the following interior finishes: 9-foot ceilings, 42-inch upper cabinets in the kitchen, crown molding, all Class A amenitized multifamily units. it'll have the following mixture of unit types: 70% one bedroom, 25% two bedroom, 5% three bedroom. Total of 5% of the units will be affordable for 80% of the area median income. Approval of subject property is conditioned on the site plan. The elevations are conditioned upon the elevation submitted with the application, and then the stipulation letter presented with the application. I can answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Stobbs. Any questions? Hold on. We haven't opened it up to public comment, so if you'd work with us, we'll get your questions answered just as soon as possible. Any questions for Mr. Stobbs? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Stobbs. At this time, we'd like to have the applicant come forward and tell us a little bit about the application. Good evening and welcome back.
Again, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. Again, for the record, my name is Garvis Sams with the law firm of Sams, Larkin and Huff in Marietta. And I have with me tonight Mr. David Woodbury, whom you've seen 7 times over the past 10 years in terms of the rezonings and entitlements that he's done to benefit the city of Smyrna and of course, his company as well. Along with him and also from Woodbury Group is Mr. Todd Prinky. So they're both here with me. We also have Mr. Travis Vickers, who is our architect. There's a lot of unique architectural design features to these buildings and to the overall site itself. And to the extent I'm not able to adequately or eloquently respond to any questions you have about architecture, we do have our architect here. And I might add, this is probably a product in a mixed-use development like you've never seen in the city in terms of not just necessarily scope and scale, but in terms of the new urbanistic approach that Mr. Woodbury and his consultants have taken on this. Again, for the record, and it is for the record, congratulations to the new Planning Commission members. It is good to be before all of you today. As either Mr. Martin or Mr. Stobbs always do, they've teed it up nicely. But there's a lot of moving parts to this application. It's actually been fun, literally fun working with this because of the uniqueness of it. This is an assemblage, the totality of which is 3.2 acres, which is designated as lying and being within a community activity center on your future land use map. But as importantly, under your LCI study, which was accepted by the Mayor and City Council in April of 2017, we're in an area called the Arts District, and what that contemplates is the type of mix we have, that is residential plus commercial retail components consisting of arts-oriented tenants, restaurants, and the like. To give you a breakdown of what we have in terms of the uses, this is a zoning that does ask for MU, the mixed-use development ordinance that you have. It is 105, a maximum of 105 total residential units, Class A, multifamily luxury homes. We have 10,800 square feet of spaces purely dedicated to the restaurants, the art galleries, the other things that I'll talk about in a minute. Then there's an additional 4,300 square feet, which will have the amenities for the development itself in terms of a cyber cafe, a fitness center, leasing office, things of that nature. And that's a total of 4,300 square feet. So in juxtaposition to the residential mass, you have a total of 15,100 square feet in non-residential or commercially oriented uses, which are all self-sustaining in terms of them working together with a synergy that will ensure that they're able to be very, very successful. There's a lot of, and I don't think your staff analysis necessarily mentions this, but there are certain planning considerations and land use planning techniques that are used in many occasions, such as stepping down or transitioning from one use to another. From all the times that I've been before you and the city council, that's something that you strive to see. That is a more intense areas which radiate from that other uses that may be lower in intensity. But this is from the city center back to the property. You have Mosaic, and of course then you have Jonquil there in the city proper. And long story short, about 10, maybe 15 years ago, I appeared before the mayor and city council to rezone Mosaic. And at the time, they were calling it the Mosaic at Vinings. And Mayor Bacon at the time said, that's just not going to work. You're not going to name it the Mosaic at Vinings. So that name was obviously jettisoned. But it's been a successful development, has direct contiguity to our property. As you know, we've received staff's favorable recommendation for approval, subject to their standard stipulations and conditions and special stipulations and conditions. We also have submitted a stipulation letter, I think it's a revised stipulation letter, which expands or expounds upon our original stipulation letter. It's dated May 27th, and with that we submitted some other documentation that your staff had requested and things that we know that you like to see, and some things that are simply required. This will be from GC, R20, and RTD to MU in conformity to the site plan, the revised site plan that was submitted on May the 27th. I've mentioned to you the mix of the project. Residential over retail is something that you typically strive for in terms of a new urbanistic type of approach. So we have that in one of the buildings. Of course, the other building is the 55 units of luxury multifamily. We have broken down the units into 70, 25, and 5. That's the 3, 2, a studio to 2 bedrooms to 3 bedrooms. The reason for that is because we know what the demographic is asking for in this area. Mr. Woodbury and Mr. Prinky have done a demographic analysis to make sure that the people that would be attracted to this in terms of socioeconomic positioning, they're there. The market is there. We've built into that. I say we have, in conjunction with staff, we've built in there the ability of the community development director to be able to deviate in any one of those mixes up to 10%. The reason for that is the market changes and market trends. So we'd like for you to imbue him with the authority as a part of your motion to allow him to be able to make those changes, which typically would happen during the plan review process prior to the construction and build out. We have spoken also with Ward Council member Austin Wagner, and it's regarding this. What you see is a workforce component in this, and Mr. Stobbs has articulated that. My letter contains that. We're agreeable to that. It was introduced to us by Councilman Wagner, but we're in discussions continually with him and with staff in order to tweak and most likely adjust that. And we've given the councilman and the staff with some examples of how that can be incorporated into a development. It's actually a component of the LCI is to look at workforce housing issues. Your LCI calls it affordable, but whatever terminology you give it, it's of the entirety of the units of the multifamily will be for individuals or families whose income is no more than 80% of the area median income, and that's determined obviously by looking at information that's available on the internet. And the units are capped at 33% of the tenant's income. So this would be a program that would last 10 years, or at least the way it's presently configured and articulated. But again, I want to emphasize that we didn't we're not misleading you. That's the stage of our discussions with the city council and with staff right now for that. You've seen, of course, architectural renderings and elevations, which we think are stunning, and we think Travis has done an excellent job of putting that together. It's aesthetically, it's more than aesthetically pleasing. It's stunning in my estimation. All these units will have 9-foot ceilings. There's a few in certain instances will have to be tweaked to 8 foot 8 inches or something of that nature. So there'll be a few tweaks, but a preponderance of everything will be 9 feet. The interior enhanced core-in or marble quartz countertops. The cabinetry is going to be durable, and I've specified that. Of course, wireless connection, fully equipped fitness center. And I really get into the minutia of the interior of the units, and the purpose for that is to ensure that from a price point perspective, we got a product that not everyone can either likes or and they're all upgrades, but these are upgrades that we've agreed to for the totality of the residential units. In addition to what I've told you about the fitness center, there'll also be convenient club rooms, a central posting area, grilling area, cyber cafe, all of this to serve the totality of the project. We'll be setting up, and obviously you need this. It's not an HOA, but it's a master owners association, and it combines the retail and also the residential, which is responsible for common elements of the rezoning, including, of course, private streets, signage, open spaces, and things of that nature. We'll be submitting the Master Association documents to staff and most likely the city attorney before the plan review process begins. So that's a document that hadn't been prepared and no one has seen, but it will have to meet and be fly-specced by both your staff and the city attorney as well. The architectural style and composition will be as shown in the handouts I've given you and as shown and spoken to by Mr. Stobbs. We submitted, these are revised architectural elevations that were submitted along with my May 27th stipulation letter. And we comply in all respects with the city's architectural regulations in terms of the mixture of components of the architectural style and composition. Of course, the Master Association will have architectural design, not responsibility, but oversight to ensure that what we show is actually what is built and after a build out of this. We have agreed to, and rightly we should, in terms of the positioning and denomination of it, but Mr. Woodbury and his company will be responsible for all interior roadway, infrastructure, detention, et cetera. That's part of the Master Association's responsibility. All the signage will be ground-based monument-style signage in terms of the entrances, and the finishing materials will be consistent with the architectural style that you've seen. There's not going to be any billboards, not going to be any roof signs, no exterior temporary signs, excepting maybe a development coming or grand opening, something of that nature. We do ask for the ability to do a vertical marquee signage attached to the buildings, which may be utilized in addition to other signage mentioned so far. The lighting within the community, there's really two components of that. There's the lighting that's lower based, and then there's the elevated lighting. It will be environmentally sensitive, decoratively themed to the architectural style and composition of the components I've just mentioned. But also, to take it one step further, the lighting within the parking areas will be a maximum of 30 feet in height. The poles upon which that will be erected will be full cutoffs. It will be themed to our architectural style and composition, but also what you see here and what the city has stuck with in terms of what you have here in Market Village and other places of a mixed-use nature. Originally, we had conversations with Rev Coffee about a piece of property that we had targeted in order to be constructed for Rev Coffee's overflow parking. What we've done, though, is jettison that from the proposal, and what's before you now is just a potential restriping of the existing parking that Rev has. In the, I won't say the peak season, because it seems to always be peak season for Rev, but they need the parking. We're not doing it to gain extra parking for ourselves. And then the most recent plan you've seen shows the parallel parking as well, to make it easier or as easy to access the project from the streets without having to go in. We had talked about perhaps gating this after a certain period of time, but with the mix of uses, it's not feasible, and I don't believe even though we'd have a Knox box, a universal Knox box, I don't think the fire department, when your fire marshal was exactly excited about that. So if we do restripe for Rev Coffee, then at their pleasure, that's what we'll do. The existing overflow parking that they have, which also seems to be utilized particularly in the summertime, by the expansive nature of it's some kind of a car shop. I think it's called Auto Cool, but it's also the enclosed proximity, and Rev and the auto place seem to, I don't want to say knock heads, but they certainly vie for parking, and many times equally so. The streets within here will be private, but they'll be built to the city's design and detail specifications. As shown on the site plan and with the architectural renderings, what you're seeing is kind of cool architecture. We have recessed areas in outdoor dining and alcoves, not to impede pedestrian traffic, because pedestrian connectivity and meaningful pedestrian interior and exterior maneuverability is all about what the LCI study has looked at, and of course it's articulated specifically within the LCI that's important to the city and the city's staff. Mr. Stobbs told you about the sidewalks and about the grass strips and how that will look. There's an existing sidewalk, of course, on Spring, and then there's a bus stop there as well, which will be upgraded to match our architectural style and composition. Because of the MU classification we have proposed, by definition, this is specific to the project, specific to the ultimate design. Of course, when you get in a plan review process, it seems like with full engineering on tap in terms of hydrological, traffic considerations, and others, there many times seems to be opportunities or almost mandatory tweaks to the site plan. But we're asking that you approve it exactly as you see it tonight, and hopefully if you recommend approval, the mayor and council will do the same. It just gives the staff some latitude that under certain circumstances, minor revisions can be made. If we have to move a building a couple of feet or jog the parking this way or that. We've already revised the site plan to relocate the dumpster that was shown on the original plan in terms of its location. So there will be a dumpster, but we would like to reserve the latitude to be able to do at-grade trash compaction, just depending on the circumstances that exist. It'll either be one or the other. I don't think it'll be a combination of the two. We really have to hit the mark from a landscaping perspective on this. We'll be doing a specific landscape plan submitted during plan review, subject to the arborist and, of course, staff's review and approval. And if you'd like, you certainly make it so that it comes back before the mayor and council for final approval. That's fine with us. And we want it to be consistent. Want to be consistent with what the city is providing, particularly in terms of the central business district and how the vision that Mayor Bacon and his father had for this part of Smyrna has come to fruition. I talked about the lighting, both interior to the project and around the project, but on the property. Mr. Woodbury has agreed to submit a full photometric plan for staff's review and approval so that the lighting doesn't impede with any type of either traffic around the area, but it is facilitating in terms of pedestrian connectivity. So that photometric plan has to be submitted during plan review as well. There's not going to be any outside paging systems or loudspeakers, and we may have outdoor music systems and outdoor musical performers. After all, this isn't an arts district, so we anticipate that, particularly in conjunction with the art gallery, who's given us a letter of intent, and also any restaurants as well. Sound can travel and travel fast and far, and we want to make sure that no one is bothered by this. There are a lot of uses available under the MU classification. If you look at the stipulation letter we submitted, hopefully as part of your package, we've agreed to prohibit 21 otherwise permissible uses under the MU district: automotive repair and service, gas stations, fast food, lumber, hardware, mobile home and travel trailers, check cashing establishments, the things that tattoo parlors, massage parlors, package stores, these are things that typically would be allowable, but I can tell you, working as long as I have with the city, those are uses that you simply don't want to see in an upscale and urbanistic setting such as this. The city engineer, Mr. Moore and Ms. White, have made some recommendations. We're agreeable and compliant with all the traffic and transportation comments that are contained in your analysis, but also, as important, we engaged the services of Low Engineering, and right after this stipulation letter was filed on May 27th, we submitted the traffic impact study to the city engineers for their approval and review. I don't know if I'm running out of time or what that just popped up on the screen, but I'll try to close it out, Mr. Chairman. We need to bring Corn Road up to the city standards. It is substandard. Sidewalk, curb, and gutter, of course, along Jonquil. We submitted in connection with the fire marshal's request an auto turn analysis. They have to have so many feet in terms of radii and whatnot, making sure they can accommodate the property. Also, Mr. Grubaugh has told us, or Fire Marshal Grubaugh has told us, that we're going to be adding potentially 2 to 3 fire hydrants. All of our points of ingress and egress are right in, right out. All the curbs that we have are going to be mountable curbs for the fire department apparatus, which generally need a hard surface which accommodates up to 75,000 pounds per square inch. So we'll meet all those requirements. The city engineer also weighs on detention, hydrology, water quality, and downstream considerations. We submitted, previous to the submission of the stipulation on May 27th, we submitted a full-bore hydrology study to Mr. Moore and his staff, and hopefully he's had a chance, or they've had a chance to fully vet and look at that. So for all these reasons, we do respectfully request that you recommend approval as a planning commission to the mayor and council based upon our presentation this evening, and knowing that the workforce component of this is still in the process of discussions. So with that being said, Mr. Chairman and members, Mr. Woodbury, Mr. Prinky, and of course our architect are all here to respond to any questions or address any concerns you may have. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Sams. Do we have any questions for the applicant and Mr. Jones?
Yeah, so I see it's at 5% affordable housing now. So there's talks to increase that possibly. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yes, sir.
And then just secondly, I know you referenced the dumpster, but is there any plans for recycling as well? Have you guys planned for that, or?
I don't know. Mr. Woodbury is here, and he can respond to that. I just simply don't know the answer to that.
Okay. Thank you.
You want me to call him up?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Woodbury? Do I need to swear him in?
No, he just got to promise not to lie, that's all. Just kidding. Good evening, Mr. Woodbury. Welcome back.
David Woodbury with the Woodbury Group. Regarding recycling, yes, we plan to have a recycling program for the project.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Woodbury.
Any other questions for the applicant? Yeah.
A couple of questions. The buildings, is there any kind of intent to phase this project?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
What's the reason for disconnecting the buildings for that drive? It just kind of breaks things up. I think we're missing a pretty good opportunity to really energize that corner. This is an important development.
It's hugely important. At least in my layman's terms, it's a gateway to the city,
Right.
or a gateway leaving the city proper, no matter which way you go. In terms of the decision-making process on the positioning of the points of ingress and egress, again, the thinking process of that is solely attributable to Mr. Woodbury and his consultants. So again, if I may call him up to respond to that.
Yeah, thank you.
There were a couple of things that drove where we put that entrance off of Jonquil, and one was how much traffic was going down Jonquil Drive, but the primary driver was the fact that it's a mixed-use project, and you've got businesses there along Spring, and if you're having to send people down to the end of, basically to the end of the project, back around up to parking to go visit the dentist or go to the restaurant there, it's a deterrent.
Okay.
And so when you're turning in, but up closer to that retail area, it's much preferred.
It's going to be a messy area because that drive's coming right out into Auto Cool, and that's almost zero curb. The length of that mixed use or that commercial area on the opposite side of Jonquil.
Yeah, it's more. It's actually closer to the auto shop that's behind.
A little bit further.
Auto Cool, and there's a traffic study that you guys may have that kind of shows how all that would work.
Yeah, it's an F. Just one more quick thing. This is a conglomeration of properties. My understanding is some of the smaller business owners, we want to make sure that they have the opportunity to do their due diligence in relocating. What's our time frame here? Assuming we approve, Mayor and Council approves, what's your construction?
Cantrails and a transmission shop there, and my understanding is Cantrails is planning to retire, and I'm not in the transmission shop actually leases from the Cantrails, and I believe they will probably relocate. But from a timing standpoint, construction would begin and either very end of this year, early next year.
Okay. Good deal. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any other questions for the applicant or his representatives? Okay. All right. At this time, we're going to open up for public comment. Sorry. We're going to open up for public comment. Have anyone that would like to come forward and speak in favor of or opposition to this application. You guys have been doing a great job. Really appreciate all the hard work at keeping this party moving. But if we could just come one at a time.
Good evening. My name is Lauren Guada. I live at 1601 Mosaic Way in the Mosaic subdivision, the townhomes that's bordering this property. We have questions. So we'd like you to take these questions into consideration, and maybe the applicant can provide some answers for us.
Excellent.
We're concerned about we haven't seen the traffic study, so we are concerned about the traffic. It's very difficult to get out of Mosaic currently at the main entrance because of all the traffic on Spring. And based on the site plan that we reviewed, it appears as though there is a turn-in right at where Cantrell's is, or somewhere in that general vicinity. And we're concerned that it's going to back up there and getting out of Mosaic is going to be even more difficult than it is currently. Now, that being the case, we have a back gate that brings us out to Jonquil. And we are also concerned that if everybody decides to come out that way, now we're going to have traffic backed up there because that's the only place where we have a light. So I don't know if there's plans to put a light out there by the Mosaic entrance. It's about, I don't know how many feet. If there's any plans to do that to help relieve some of that traffic backup, we get it going towards the Cumberland area and we get it coming in when you're coming home. The other concern we have is on Corn Road. There's parking, there's a whole slew of parking right there, and that backs up to our nature trail. We are concerned that, I know that street will have to be widened because I think right now only it's just one lane. And if they do widen it, we want to make sure that there's not going to be any street parking there. While I know they have the parking spaces, it does not appear to us that there is sufficient parking spaces to accommodate the number of units that they're going to have in there, especially you having 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms, and your expectation, at least based on the plans we saw, is 1 parking space per unit. That just does not seem to be realistic to us. In addition to that, we're going to have retail space. It just doesn't seem to have enough parking spaces. So it just seems like there's too many units for the parking that they want to have there. I don't know if there's anybody else who has anything else to add, but for the most part, those are some of our main concerns that we have at Mosaic.
Thank you. Could you say your name again, please?
Lauren Guada, Guada.
Thank you, Ms. Guada, and very well done on your presentation. All right. Well, Chief Akery does a little housekeeping. I believe we've got some other people that would like to speak. Welcome back, Mr. Bai. I really miss you being up here with us.
Good to see you, Chairman Powell, and the other members and the new members. Full disclosure, I was a former member of the P&Z board. My name is Monty Bai. I'm a 14-year resident of Williams Park. I live on Spring Street in Williams Park. The Spring Road Corridor LCI market analysis projected that the Spring Road corridor would be able to support 3 to 5 luxury apartment complexes over the next 10 to 15 years. That would be a period that extends up until 2032. In the last year alone, there have been 4 high-density projects that have made it to the P&Z agenda. The Emerson project was proposing well over 300 units with retail and a hotel. It did not get approved, but I suspect that something very similar will be back before you in the very near future. The Old Cumberland Church development was approved, and it adds over 200 townhomes. The Spring and Campbell Road development, just down the street from this project, is proposing to have another additional 200 units and other various elements. And this project will add 105 units. They all funnel to Spring Road. None of the traffic studies for any of these individual projects take into account the traffic impact of the other projects. The net effect of this one is 700. But when you look at the cumulative effect, or the potential cumulative effect of all of these projects, we could be looking at 3,000 to 5,000 additional trips on Spring Road per day. That is not to mention a 200-room hotel that was approved for the Spring Hill Parkway just recently. In other words, there is no holistic view that looks at all of the projects in total and their impact on traffic on Spring Road and the resultant livability for those of us that live in wards 1, 2, or 3. If I'm not mistaken, a previous traffic study done for the Sports Avenue development pointed out that Spring Road now has 34,000 trips per day. The intersection of Spring Road and Cumberland is the most problematic in the city and likely the county. Traffic studies have given the Spring and Cumberland intersection during peak hours a grade of F. with wait times nearly 3 times the level deemed unacceptable. The city traffic engineer has admitted that this intersection and the east end of Spring Road is at capacity and has no room for expansion. The transit feasibility study that's currently under review and just finished its open public comments offers little relief over the next 5 years. The majority of any relief comes 10 years out, assuming the projects get approved, funding is found, we agree and coordinate a plan with the county, MARTA, and ARC. If this development is approved, Williams Park will be surrounded by high-density projects, including the Jonquil Plaza, Belmont developments to the west, the approved townhome development on Roswell to the north and east of this development, and to the south. It should be noted that there are 2 more commercial properties up for sale just across the street from this proposed development on Jonquil Road. We don't know what will go in there, but I suspect it'll be something very similar. It has been said that these projects none of these projects would have a material impact on Williams Park. I live on Spring Street. The backup from Jonquil and Spring Road backs all the way up to Spring Street. I live 3 blocks down the road, and on some mornings, the backup is all the way to the street that I go in to enter my driveway. In the evenings, the backup from Spring Road and Roswell Road also backs all the way back up on Spring Street to nearly my front yard, quarter of a mile. All of those to avoid going the traffic that's created by the Jonquil Plaza or to provide a shortcut for Belmont. This project will only add to those backups as people turning left on Jonquil onto Spring Road will be competing with the right turn folks from this project. So those signals will be longer, the backups will continue to be longer. I will remind folks who paid attention to the last election that many of the candidates, including our mayor, ran on a campaign of pumping the brakes on high density. I think that we should do that until we have our arms around it. I think this project in and of itself would be a great project. The fact that they're looking at affordable housing, even though 5% is negligible, if they added some more, I think that's a great attribute. In and of itself, if this was the only project being considered, it might be a great addition to the neighborhood and spur some activity in this arts district. That would be exciting. But when we look at what's happening and what has happened and what almost assuredly is going to happen in the next couple of years, we don't have livability anymore for the people that live on wards 1, 2, and 3. Spring Road just can't handle it, and our own traffic engineer has admitted as much. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. By. Okay, we'll do a little housekeeping again, and then we'll see if there's anyone else that would like to come forward and speak in favor of or opposition to this application. All right, thank you very much, Chief. Any other comments? Come on up. Good evening and welcome.
My name is Mike Fitzgerald, and I live on Emery Road, and I'm strongly opposed to it. I think we don't have enough parking going into this project, and where I live now, I'm concerned about the re-proposed plan. Originally, we had some of Rev parking using that as an overflow. Right now, as you know, I think I sent you an email, we are seeing parking off of Emery Road parking lot at 2926. I know you mentioned there's some restriping going on, but that's a huge concern of mine. So we've got 130 parking spots, and what was the total number of bedrooms we're proposing? I'm sorry? Bedrooms?
No, it's units.
Well, it is a difference because it's a mix of 3 and 2 and
Yeah.
1, and I can't imagine that 130 is going to be sufficient, especially when we add the retail piece to it, and we already have an issue there to begin with. And I I certainly agree with all the points that you had made and he had made. You know, we're going to have some traffic issues turning in and out of there. I've been there 18 years and I've seen a lot. You know, I just don't think we have the infrastructure in place to handle that. You know, we added the townhomes at the end of, you know, the couple blocks down that are in process right now. Those folks alone are going to be coming around using Corn Road and then coming up Jonquil to make a left-hand turn because you can't turn left onto Spring already. And I'm not sure the number we've added there, 40-something, but we're going to have an issue. The light is already an issue before we even add these residences. So, you know, that's my concern.
Mr. Fitzgerald, thank you for your time. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening to all of you. I'm here to speak on behalf of
Can you state your name for the record, please? I'm
Alan
so-
Lowe. Alan Lowe.
Alan
I
Lowe.
live at 2948 Jonquil Drive. I've been a resident there since August of 2007. I've enjoyed the lot because of the green space. I have two large oak trees there. My driveway is lined with greenery. My whole backyard is surrounded by greenery. Another oak tree, large pine trees. It is my desire to continue to live there, and I've heard about, you know, the plans, the big plans, and how maybe they could accommodate less traffic. There are two lots south of the German Auto House, and no one lives in them. They've been like that, you know, for months. And I think the plans could be changed to make a better living area and a better living space there. But I would like to object to the zoning because I want to stay there.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. Anyone else that'd like to come and speak in favor of or opposition to this application? Good evening and welcome.
My name is Lula Clark, and I'm also a resident at Mosaic Way. And I do also have the same concerns as Lauren Guada and the other gentleman in the orange shirt. Sorry.
Mr. Bai. He's famous around here.
But yeah, I just wanted to kind of voice my concern as well. The traffic is already horrendous. I live like right on Spring Road, where my townhome is, and it's, you know, constant traffic going, of course. I've also witnessed like accidents. You know, I can hear them, and I go out and try to assist people as well. And I just feel like, you know, with the property on was it Jonquil?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, it'd just be just too much for that area as far as traffic.
Okay.
So,
Thank you, Ms. Clark. I don't think she touched it. Anybody else? We have one more. Good evening and welcome.
Thanks for having me. My name's Kevin Pass. Me and my family own All Pro Transmission.
Yeah.
We're a very busy automotive / transmission shop, and we've been in the area for 39 years.
Wow.
We've been at that location for 36.
Wow.
We have a very large Smyrna clientele that depends on us for automotive repair. I've even noticed in the audience that one of the developers is a customer of mine. Kind of a little ashamed to look at me, but that's okay. I won't even point him out. But one thing I wanted to request, and thank you, Tom, for asking Mr. Woodbury about the timing. We haven't been told anything from our landlord, Woodbury, nobody. The only thing we've seen is the signs, and then we have to piece information together. Naturally, we don't want to go anywhere. We've been here forever. Everybody knows where we're at. I have many customers that come to me that want me to check out their car before they'll go on a trip. These people are going to follow me wherever I go. The biggest thing I would like to request is if you grant this rezoning, that maybe we can have something more clear on the timing so that we can relocate, because we will, and the people will follow us, and hopefully it's still in Smyrna if that happens. But, you know, with 39 years of excellent service, if you look at any of the social media on us, we are practically perfect. We go above and beyond to service this community, whether it be taking customers home, working on the weekends. We haven't had a vacation, and God only knows when. But anyway, thank you for your time. And, you know, you said your job is to do what's good for the community. You said that earlier. Hopefully you'll have a little consideration for a great local business, because that's very important too.
Absolutely, sure is. And we appreciate you being here all these years. Thank you, Mr. Pass. Any other comments from the public? Okay. We're going to close public comment after Ms. Crow reads an email. And this is a deviation. Normally, we wouldn't accept this kind of thing. But we have a citizen that is concerned and wanted her voice to be heard. And so we're, in lieu of our circumstances, we're going to allow Ms. Crow to read that email. Please.
Thank you, Chairman. So yes, this is on behalf of a Ward 1 resident, Judy Bost. So I'm going to read it verbatim as she sent it. In addition to the bad timing of this meeting during a pandemic, if I could attend, I would speak out against the high-density apartments that are being planned, the large space for a paved parking lot, the scraping of the land, and the already highly congested Spring Road corridor. If Smyrna continues at this pace of building townhomes and apartments along this corridor, what will this do to enhance the quality of life for people who live here as well as those who might want to move to Smyrna? A recent traffic study gave a D rating to some Spring Road intersections that would be impacted by another proposed rezoning of the Campbell and Spring Road property. Are we hoping to look like Roswell Road in Sandy Springs or the downtown connector? There are other more worthwhile uses for this land that, if done correctly, would enhance our city and not continue down this path of degradation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crow. Okay. Is there any further discussion from the board? Just for the record, we had a pretty balanced presentation in terms of timing from the applicant and from the public.
Joe, I just had one quick question.
Sure.
For the applicant. That parking, I know it says 130. Does that include the street parking as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's all it was. Thank you. Thanks, Joel.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Anybody else? Any further comments up here? All right. We are going to open the floor for a motion. Can I get a motion, please? We have Mr. Jones with a motion to approve. Do we have a second? We do not have a second, so the motion fails to approve. Do we have another motion?
I have a motion to reject rezoning.
Motion to deny.
Deny.
Mr. Bartlett, a motion to deny. Do we have a second? Mr. Seagraves? We have a second for Mr. Seagraves. I'm sorry, guys. Can we vote on the motion to deny this application as presented? The motion to deny is approved 4-1. Good luck as this moves forward to mayor and council. Mr. Woodbury has done a bunch of work in Smyrna over the years, but I hear it loud and clear, and we've heard it for a long time about the direction our community is going. And there is a difficult thing to manage because for the many reasons that sit in this room, people want to come live in our town. We have a fantastic town. You have contentious issues like this that come up, and everybody here was very respectful, very professional, great presentations, and stated their case. And it's because they love living here. And I really believe if we operate from that realm, then this will work, and we will find quality, beneficial developments, many of which the applicant will engage in here in our community. So thank you all for that, in a difficult meeting like this where it's absolutely abnormal for everybody involved, the level of professionalism is very much appreciated from where I sit. The other thing I wanted to mention before we take off or close the meeting is staff has a difficult job doing their job, dealing with citizens, dealing with the elected officials, and then they get uprooted out of their lives and their offices, just like many of you have. And so I want to applaud all their efforts to move us up here, to keep us safe, to make us all feel safe. I'm just really proud of how hard they're all working and to get us back to some sense of normalcy. Also want to thank the fire chief for having his staff here tonight to check our temperatures and just give us that one more piece of mind that we can come out and be together and not be a threat to each other. And members of our board, thank you for coming out. I mean, we have to make a decision, our own personal protection. So I really appreciate them coming out. And without you guys, the citizens that are here that, as I said earlier, spoke so eloquently and passionately about either being in favor of or opposition to the application, the meeting doesn't work without your input. And what often happens is it leads to a very frustrating experience in your community because you're not engaged, you're not involved, and you don't know what's going on around you. So really appreciate all you guys coming out tonight and participating in our meeting. The last item on our agenda is approval of the minutes from the March 9th, 2020 meeting. Are the board members in possession of the minutes? And do we have a motion to approve as presented? Motion to approve the minutes as presented, Mr. Rice. A second, Mr. Seagraves. All in favor, please vote. The minutes are approved 5-0. Is there anybody that'd like to add anything before we gavel this thing? Where's the hammer? I'll use my, more appropriate, I'll use my hand sanitizer. All right, this meeting is adjourned at 8:04 p.m.